Hello everyone, I'm Dave Thomas, and today I am building the Estes Zombie. This is an easy to assemble kit and should go together in less than half an hour. As always, we want to start out by checking we've got all of the parts. Okay, so first of all we have the body tube, which is pre-decorated here with a zombie motif, and the launch lug and the shock cord are already attached. Alright, then we've got a nose cone here, and inside this little package, alright, so we have the fin can here in two halves, motor retainer, the base piece for the nose cone, 3 fins, okay. A parachute, and then this is a reinforcement for the launch lug there, and then the rest of this is just advertising. So it looks like we've got everything we need. This is going to go together with some plastic model cement, so make sure you have some of that. I'm going to clear most of this away and we will get started. The instructions have us putting together the fin can first. I'm going to do a little bit different here. So for the nose cone, I'm going to assemble it first so that it can be drying while we do the rest of it. For this, I'm going to use some tube type plastic cement here. For most of the rest of it, I'm going to use a brush on type of cement because I've got more control with it. But here we're just going to run a moderate bead of glue right inside here. You don't want to use too much or you'll end up melting the plastic. That's generally not a good idea. Alright, then we'll just put the base in there, twist it back and forth a couple of times, and just set that aside to dry. Okay, now for the fin can, this needs to be glued together. Now you can use the tube type cement if you like, and if you don't have a different one. I'm going to use this brush on cement, just because I do have more control with it, and we're less likely to have stuff spilling around. Okay, so generally we're just going to go around all of these edges here and make sure we get the little pegs and holes. Now this type of cement does dry a lot quicker, so you have to be fairly quick about putting it on. Alright, they're just going to put the two pieces together here. Make sure we're lining up the correct areas. Alright, I'm just going to hold those together for about 30 seconds while that glue sets. Now I'm temporarily holding this together with a piece of masking tape here, just so that the glue gets good and dry before we go on to put the fins on. So I'm going to set that aside for a moment. And we're going to do a few things here that don't require the plastic glue. So we can go ahead and attach this reinforcement here. This is just basically a clear decal. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to place it right in the middle, or as close as I can, of the launch lug assembly here. Alright, and I don't want it to grip down below yet. Okay, so instead of just folding this over, what I want to do is crease it inward so it actually sticks to the side of the launch lug first, and then we'll fold it onto the tube itself. And this just keeps less air out of it. It makes it look a little better. Same thing here. So I'm going to use a fingernail just to crease down along here. Now there's some excess glue that they use there, and that's going to cause little bumps. Just do as best you can. Alright, and then once again we'll come down here over the main body tube Alright, and just rub that across. Get as much air out as you can. Okay, I'll set that aside once more. Now we can go ahead and start on the parachute. Okay, so just take this out. Open it up. Okay, and then just find all the loops here of the shroud lines. There should be 3 loops. Make up 6 shroud lines. And you can do this in one of 2 ways. So the way the instructions show, if we flip this over, is to tie the parachute directly to the nose cone. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, with all of the loops over one finger, hold the parachute in the middle with your other hand here, and try to get as close as possible all of the corners of the chute to be in about the same spot there. Alright, once you have that, you can gather up the loops here, and you always want to be hanging on with one finger or one hand or the other so that they don't change size. Alright, and I'm just going to thread these loops through the nose cone eyelet. Alright, I'm still keeping some tension on back here. Alright, and then I'm going to pass the nose through the loops and just pull that taut. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing because I'm not going to do my parachute that way. So I'm going to take mine back off. Okay, now if you've seen my other videos, you know that I prefer to use snap swivels to attach my parachutes so that it's easier to change them out if we need to. Okay, now the size of the snap swivel doesn't matter a whole lot as long as the snap part here is large enough to go around the eyelet and still move freely. Alright, so that one does. It's not hanging up there. Take that back off for a moment. Okay, now once more, take my loops and my corners here, make sure everything's even. Okay, now the snap swivels you can get in the fishing departments of most sporting goods and department stores. Alright, what I'm going to do now is put all my loops through the swivel end, the round loop here, on the snap swivel. Regain my loops of shroud lines, and I'm going to take this entire thing and pass it through those loops. Alright, I'm going to pull the loops downward, and now I'm just going to tighten that on there, and then come back and check that I haven't changed the length of my shroud lines too badly. It still looks pretty good. Now if you do need to change it, you can just loosen that up and try again. Once you have it where you want it, then go ahead and put a little dab of glue, either white glue or wood glue, on that little knot there. Just a tiny amount. Okay, and then you can just work that into the knot a little bit and then let that dry, and that will keep it from unraveling. And then we'll assemble that here when we're all done. Alright, we're going to come back to the fin can now. Hopefully this is dried enough. And just to make sure so we don't have this popping loose while we're putting the fins on, I'm going to move my masking tape up here to the top where it's tapered a little bit. And that'll just help keep it held together there. Now in the instructions they're using a tube type cement and applying that cement to the base of the fins and then putting that in. Okay, and you can do that. Just be aware that if these are really tight, that glue can grab and it may not do it the way you want it to. So the first thing is, regardless of the method you use, go ahead and test fit these fins into the slots and make sure they go in and out okay. Okay, if they're doing that, alright, so a couple of ways. As I said, you can do it the way they do, where they're putting a coat of glue on the root edge on either side and then popping that in. And you can do that with either the tube type or the brush-on cement. Okay, or you can go ahead and put all these on first And frankly, if you want to, you don't even have to glue these. Okay, so as long as your fin can is glued well, and you put your motor in there, once you put that retainer on, those fins can't go anywhere. And in fact, some of Estes snap together models do just that. They're basically this same thing, but without glue. Alright, but with glue, okay, an alternative method here is you can go ahead and using the brush-on type of glue, just run this along those seams. And the glue will be drawn in by some capillary action there. And even if you get a little sloppy with it, once the glue dries, it's not very noticeable. So just do this on both sides of each fin. And if you want, you can go ahead and add a little glue to the seams where we glued this together earlier. Try not to be too sloppy about it, but again, if you are, it's not a big deal there. Because once it dries, as long as you don't disturb it, it will be just fine. Okay, now do be careful that you don't get glue down in the threads there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just put this on briefly to make sure everything's still fitting. Alright, I can take that back off again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take off the masking tape here. And now I'm going to let this dry for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and put it together. My fins have dried a bit, and so now we're going to put the body tube on. I'm first going to just dry fit this to make sure that everything does indeed fit. Okay, and it's pretty snug, but that's okay. Snug is good. But we want to make sure that the launch lugs are in between two of the fins here, like that. Okay, now we're going to be gluing two dissimilar surfaces. So we've got cardboard here and plastic here. You don't want to use the brush-on type cement for this. It won't work. The instructions call for tube type plastic cement, and you can either use that or you can use a gel type of super glue, which I actually prefer for doing dissimilar types of materials like plastic to cardboard. Alright, but either one's fine, and I'm going to use a moderate bead of this all the way around just inside the tube. Alright, you don't want to use the really runny kind because it'll just soak into the tube and it won't glue very well. So use a gel type. Okay, now I can come back here, and once again making sure that my launch lugs are between the fins. I can just pop that into place, give it a wiggle back and forth to seat it into the glue, and now that can dry. In fact, it's drying already. Okay, over here on the other end, we're going to attach the nose cone. Now if you just tied the parachute to the nose cone, that should be on here now. If you use the snap swivel method that I showed here, you can attach the parachute later. So here we're just going to tie a double knot of the shock cord onto the nose cone here, or 2 half hitches for you scouts out there. Alright, and pull this from all directions to make sure the knot gets nicely seated there. And like we did with the shroud lines, we can take just a little bit of white glue or wood glue and work that into the knot here. And that'll just help keep that knot from coming undone. Do not use plastic cement or super glue for this because it will melt the rubber. And then on this free end of the knot over here, cut that back to about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters so it can't get caught between the shoulder and the body tube. Alright, I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes and then we'll come back and put everything together. Now that the glue is dry enough on the shock cord that it's not going to be sticking to other things, we'll go ahead and do some final assembly here. So I'm going to open up my snap swivel, place that on here, close it up. Okay, I'm going to fold my parachute here. Now this is my particular way of folding. There are many others out there. I'm basically going to gather this into about a triangle shape, gather my shroud lines about halfway and pull those up into the triangle. I'm going to fold the sides over on either one, fold that in half, and then fold the sides over again to make a cylinder here. Okay, we'll just stuff things down inside here. Now, there's no recovery wadding in this. This is just being done for storage rather than launch. Okay, so we'll just stuff the shock cord down, put the parachute down on top of that, stuff it in, and then place the nose cone in. Now we want to do a shake test here. So that nose cone should not be able to shake out. Now it's trying to there. Alright, so we're going to add just a little bit of masking tape to it. So here on the shoulder, you probably won't even need a full circumference. So just start with a fraction there. And that feels like it's going to be just enough. So now if I shake that, it's not going anywhere, but I can still remove it fairly easily. And that's what we want. And then finally, we'll add the retainer ring here, and that will hold the motor in when we get to that point. Okay, and once more, make sure everything's lined up nicely. Okay, and that's it. That is my undead rocket, the zombie. This whole thing went together in less than half an hour, and so this is a great one for group projects, and in fact, with the upcoming solar eclipse on 8 April of 2024, my college is doing a rocketry workshop the morning before totality there. And so we're going to have a whole bunch of zombies being launched after the eclipse. So I hope you had a fun time building this with me. Have a great flight and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.